if you're listening to their conversation. Oh, sorry.
7:06.
Are there more?
We convene at 7:06. I'm going to open up again for public comment. West White.
Oh, me first? Oh, joy.
Top of the list there.
Get your camera going.
Okay. Yeah, right.
No microphone, so.
An extra 10 seconds there. Thank you. Try to be a little bit of sweetness. So I guess I've been pretty quiet the last few times, just trying to observe and all that. I guess I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in the way this board has been run and continues to want to run, kind of rogue and still deciding to remain rogue. I mean, I got here in October, and at that point we were talking about anti-nepotism, and shortly after we started doing a volunteer restrictions for parent involvement, and then this restraining order thing. And yet we're still going around and around. What have we been trying to run from is the finances, the connections, that we don't want to worry about public records requests. Are we doing our job or are we not doing our job, and how transparent are we trying to be? You put up these cameras here in December, and yet you won't put them online. You won't make your board meetings available online for free. You want to charge your parents $85 a copy per board meeting per person, instead of just putting it up there for free. What are you hiding? Why? You folks backed this restraining order to protect yourselves, and you're still maintaining this board. You promised you were going to let some parents in. You've now dropped that from the agenda. And basically, you're going to hold on to this thing tooth and nail, and it's disappointing because you already said you were leaving. We need a brand new board right now.
Amanda.
May I make a request as the interpreter? When you address the board, can you stand where I can see you when you're speaking? Because it's really hard to face the back of your head and understand what you're saying. Thank you.
I hear that loud and clear.
Yeah. Yep. I was just going right over here, good?
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Like I spoke of earlier, I wanted to go over it again. There were things brought up in the meeting that I had with Augustine this week that I think other parents that are here should be aware of, as far as, where my stance personally is. There were comments made that, I'll say, our group of parents had not shown any hope or ideas of moving forward. The number one idea for moving forward, and I don't understand how it's not the priority, is to follow the bylaws. Our children are held accountable. Our children are held to follow policies, as its parents are held accountable to the policies that are placed before us. And I know of no other governance who feels they can take exception to their bylaws. The specifics of Mike and Nora, for example, that right there is in violation of 3 different bylaws. One, you guys aren't fulfilling your duty by following the bylaws. No one is supposed to be an invested interest for 12 months prior to their seat on the board. And then there's another section that states that no one sitting on the board should be compensated for any services provided to the community. So again, that's 3 different violations of 3 bylaws. So I don't understand how we can move forward and have trust in our governance if you guys don't think that you need to follow your own rules. That's all.
Comments?
Well, as I stated earlier, we had the opportunity to meet with Dr. Kowski and the incoming superintendent, Deneen Gus, and they reiterated the fact that following bylaws is crucial. It's also, and following laws is also crucial. And they stated that the governance of the school, just like Manalayan Charter School did, to be changed over to an elected. You know, you guys talk about democracy and raising kids, but you guys should be the ultimate example. And you have a lot of parents on the board, and you know, I'm sure you all have good intentions. I would just say how you have not only better intentions, but a better vision for our school than our parents do. I mean, Jorge, I've never seen you on our campus before. Maybe you can share why you're on our board. Pete, I mean, I've seen you around. You know, Laura, I'd love to see people actually participating in our board or actually speaking up. I feel like this is the Augustine board. He's the only person I've ever heard make any comments on the thing. So if you guys don't want to give the school an opportunity to be represented by its parents, which originally was the foundation of our school, I mean, it's time. We got to get a new board. It's just a reality. And I understand the laws and you're a nonprofit and you may feel like you guys can do whatever you guys want. I would say, do you think you're doing the best thing for our kids? And I would say not. I think it's time to step aside and let a diverse, we can have community members and, you know, everybody be an open book and a cooperation. So I'd like to see that. And, you know, it's unfortunate that you guys did try to pass this volunteer policy that I think you all know goes against the culture of Oasis. So I know no one ever spoke about why you guys did that, you know, Jorge and Mike, you know, why you guys tried to pass a policy that tries to prohibit parent participation. So I'd love to hear you guys' comments on why you guys felt the need to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, thank you. Moving on to closed session. Report from the closed session is the board is still negotiating with the school district and no action is taking place. That is a report on that. We move on to adoption of this agenda. Everyone's got a chance to look at it. Any comments, questions, changes? Okay. Nope. Can I get a motion to approve this agenda as presented? Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. 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 Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the minutes from the previous meeting? Okay. Can I get a move that we approve the minutes from the previous meeting? Moved and second. All those in favor say aye. All those against? Passed. Thank you. Let's move on to business services presentations. We have JP here. He's going to do a wonderful presentation, I'm sure, to the board about board development. Sorry we don't have a mic for you today.
That's all right. I'm pretty loud if I want to be.
Thank you.
It's hard to face them, which I have to do, so maybe you can go there. That would be easier. I mean, move you around.
Augustine, can I ask a question really quick about the minutes?
Yep.
The agenda stated that they'll be added to the next agenda.
So they're not available. Good point. Thank you.
So you approved it?
So-
Okay, all right.
Without seeing them?
I'm not. So can I get a motion to postpone those instead?
Move that we postpone approving the minutes.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Well, I have a question. Do you guys actually have the minutes available to you?
Those probably don't. They're not available.
And so everybody on the board need to remember
Please
this.
don't interrupt this meeting. Thank you very much.
You will be asked to leave.
Okay. So all those in favor, postponing that? Aye. Okay. Thank you. All right, JP, whenever you're ready.
So, you know, we're starting out doing board training. We started last July, and we've taken a sort of global look at the board. And I was asked tonight to take a look at that unique role that a lot of nonprofits have between their board and the staff and the other stakeholders who are interested in whatever happens in the nonprofit. In this school, obviously, there's a lot of stakeholders, and so we're looking at how you serve the public good. And we know that it's a time of lots of transition and change and so forth right now. But we want to be looking at, as you move forward, what's the best we should be doing? How do we want to be operating? And the board in any nonprofit is, in fact, as we were saying last month, the ultimate authority. That's how it goes. They have to work in public trust, though, of course. They have to work to do the best for the people they serve, the customers, to deliver the mission. And they're responsible for two things, viability and sustainability, and getting people engaged. I'm going to take
viability and
sustainability.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick look at, let me just set one timer here, at the fact that even though you are the board who has that ultimate authority, what's the collaborative role that you have with staff, with other stakeholders as you go along? And the board certainly hires as they get to a certain size, or in this case, you need it immediately because of the school. You have to deliver the services. There have to be teachers. There have to be, principals, directors, staff to run the place. So you started as a governing board, and you start with a staff. That's a collaborative role that you hire. The board hires typically the executive, who then hires the rest of the staff. And we've talked about that before, but just want to go over it again in case anyone hadn't heard that part. Even though the board has that ultimate responsibility, we always know that boards function best when they can, as they start putting their vision into practice, get in as much information as possible to make really well-informed decisions, to hear what constituents have to think, to sense what's going on in a community. Demographics change, economies change, all kinds of things happen around you that can put you out of business or, of course, help you stay in business. And so we want to be looking at the stakeholders and working collaboratively. The staff always has to work at the behest of the board's vision, though, and that's how nonprofits are set up. So some of the stakeholders that we would have, let's just talk about that for one moment, are obviously related to your regulations. So they're regulatory in nature. I'm not telling you anything hopefully you don't know, but just to make sure that we put this in a context. So the authorizing school district, LSL, in this sense is a stakeholder in you being here, the IRS, the state's attorney general, all of those kinds of bodies. And then there are programmatic stakeholders, and they would be anybody. What's one of the program delivery stakeholders? I'm going to try to interact with you, make this more interesting when you're talking. So, Mike, you were a teacher,
Yes.
a staff member,
Staff member.
and then the customers. In this case, you've got the customers are your students, but obviously their parents that go along with that. And then the third category, broadly speaking, is those at large, and that would be community who cares. You know how this operates. It might be special councils, it could be committees, it could be businesses who sponsor part of what you do. But they will also certainly one day hope that you have educated students that can become a workforce for them, or they have people who understand democracy who will become active members of the voting public. And so, the people in the community have different points of view in looking at you too. And it's incumbent upon you to put those systems in place to talk regularly with all the stakeholders, to try to create a culture of transparency. And, we've been talking about that as we go along. Easier said than done sometimes, and at different times there are certain things that will never be able to be shared, that they're confidentialities. We know that there's personnel issues. You're in a sunshine role, so your budgets are shared, whereas in most nonprofits' budgets, strategic plans and those aren't shared because that's your competitive advantage and you don't want to give that away. And so you have a little bit of a different situation here. But that duty of care says you have to get as much information as you can to make really well-informed decisions. And you have to share that information with other people. And so that leads you to try to create an environment of transparency. And again, not an easy thing to do always for everybody because many nonprofits live kind of hand to mouth. They're hoping to keep the lights on and get to the end of the week. And being very transparent takes time, and it takes dollars, and it takes, you know, a culture that has to be built up over time. I wanted to share with you in this leadership development area that there's, kind of, if we look at transparency, I'm going to do 3 quick sections. Transparency, trends, and accountability. And working both on the staff and board sides. And any one of those is a day or 2 flats, full day. So I'm just throwing out the highlights here. In transparency, there are very simple, quick things that a board always wants to be able to do and focus on in a quantifiable sense. The nature of the board is something that's important to people when they look at an organization and they say, what's their business acumen? You know, were some of them alumni or parent alumni? You know, do they have that perspective? What do they do in their community? And what the breadth of what they represent in the community becomes really important when you look at it. So the board members are sort of, if you will, representations of the ideals that an organization puts out there in a quantifiable way. The staff, the credentials that the staff brings, whether it's the teaching staff or the supporting staff, they make a lot of difference. Program descriptions, success stories, all the way down to your financials, your 990, your financial documents. You know, all of those are very quantifiable notes about how valuable you are. The harder end of transparency has to do with just that sort of ethos and culture of openness, honesty, having a dialogue, and that needs to be continually nurtured. And you know, people have talked about that. I know that's an area that you're working on and you're looking at. But that openness and honesty, you can see how important that is, because that's why the IRS said a number of years ago, every organization has to have a whistleblower policy, because you want to be able to speak up and say, you know, there's something here I think we need to work on. And so that's a policy that has to be in place in every nonprofit. And policies are great and procedures are great, but it's better if you do it because you want to, as opposed to being regulated to have to do things. And so it means that as a board you want to always be accepting, asking the hard questions, telling the hard truth. And in my observation, you told some of the hard truths, you know, and those are difficult things. And you can't fix things you're not willing to talk about, you're not willing to mention, and so forth. So you want to have that communications open. And I use the word communications very specifically because, you know, I was trained as a communicator. That was my first background. And communications literally means two-way. I say something, you hear it, you say something back, I hear it, you know, whether we've written it or we physically said it. We're not communicating unless it goes both directions. We're broadcasting. And that's when organizations get in trouble, is when they broadcast out, but they don't also listen. And they don't take that in and start a discussion. And that's, you know, where we really want to have this all the time, is listening, and discussing. Having different points of view is good. It's healthy. As you can get to some conclusions along the way here. So open communication. So how does this work? You know, you asked me to sort of talk about the separate roles of staff and board. The staff CEOs, the chief elected officer, which would be Augustine in this case, the chief staff officer, which would be Juanita right now, those are partners. And they have to feel a partnership. They have to deliver on that and trying to get the mission across. So I'm going to throw out a few suggestions. You may be doing some of these already. You may be doing them really well. You may not be doing them, or you may not be doing them as well as you hope to do them, or you'd like to do them. So I don't have a chance of knowing all of that. But in that CEO partnership, many CEOs meet on a weekly basis. And they have a really good briefing with each other, and it's very candid. And that's a good way of sharing, because it's really important to know that board is responsible for working with board. Policing board, having it, you know, if one of you has a concern, you take it to your board leader. If a staff member has a concern, they take it to their staff leader. And then those two leaders work together to try to see how do you solve these things. That's how the collaboration works. In here, board doesn't, you know, direct staff. Staff doesn't go generally to other board members. They go through the right channels. And then you have all these other stakeholders out there. You have community members and parents and students and people who might have concerns. And there has to be a process in place. And one of the ways all of this sort of transparency works best is if it's a really clear written policy that says, if you have an idea, if you have a concern, if you have a recommendation, any of those things, these are the steps you follow. And there's always going to be a need to have new ideas put in. There's always going to be a need to have complaints heard. And so having a very, very clear written understood policy is important and obviously followed. But you can be doing some more proactive things instead of waiting for people to comment. You know, I don't know if all of this is being done at the moment, but I've seen effectively done and in some of the dialogue to have, you know, if you have 9 members of a board, 3 of you at a time, every quarter, meet with several of the key stakeholder groups. Whether it be a conversation with parents, it be a conversation with business leaders, it be a conversation with funders. But to hear, what are their ideas? How do they view you? What do they see as successes? Because if we don't know how we're being seen, it's hard to know how to project ourselves. So maybe you meet, let's just take with parents. I think there's some good dialogue you want to try to keep going here. So that, you know, maybe it's a quarterly basis, maybe it's monthly. As you're starting up and you're trying to rebuild, you know, going forward. Hopefully this all opens in August and it goes and it grows. You may need more frequent communications at first and then be able to pull back some as you go along. There's also that chance to have an influentials or VIP type briefings. If you're out here doing really good things in the school and you don't tell enough people or you hope that they saw a social media posting or maybe a press release or you just hope somehow in the ether they're going to pick it up, you can't count on that. You have to really be driving your reputation all the time. And it may mean setting up lists of key VIPs in the community who are influentials, who other people ask questions of, you know, when they say, hey, do you know anything about that place? You know, can you identify some of those and meet with them on a regular basis? And again, I would say at least twice a year minimum, and maybe more where you give them a real briefing. Always better to bring those kinds of people to your own space and let them physically see what's happening because it's colorful and you see the children and you see the interaction with the teachers, but you have to be very proactive in those kinds of things. It's not only though about showing off, it's about listening to, again, in this way. What did they find surprising? What, you know, was something new that they hadn't really realized about you? You know, what did you want them to have? Make sure you give them a takeaway that's got key facts because they're going to go home and talk about the experience they had and you want them to have the facts. Otherwise, they're going to say what they think they might have heard. And it may not always be as accurate as you'd like. So a really good plan takeaway that works. You know, we talked about how can you get parents' councils, how can you get interested community members and others involved in this sort of turnaround. And right now, a lot of what you're doing is trying to rebuild. You know, you want to have this reputation, rebuild. If only the board works on that, or only that you say, well, that must be the executive director's job to do that. It's a very small base, you know, and you've got a few ardent parents who like, but if you empower all your parents, and you empower them by giving them, in many organizations we work with sort of monthly messages. Here's the message about us, something really special about us to tell everybody you know this month. And next month, we're going to have another message. And we all go out and we share that message. And we tell everybody we can think of. And we have to involve the teachers and we involve the staff in this. And you have what we call a cascade effect. And you get many more people creating that sort of buzz that you want. You can't have just a small group of people or one person because they're hired and they're the executive director and principal that, you know, is supposed to be the spokesperson. It's not powerful enough in our community to be heard over all the other communication. So try to think of the ways you can engage those other interested stakeholders to be advocates for you. And that means scripting them. It means giving them things to say. I think probably the district, from what I have seen and read, doesn't have as much as they should. It may be you send, they don't pay attention, whatever, but somehow they need to be stronger all the time advocates for what you are and what you bring to the district and that unique role you play. So it's keeping that communications up as well. Blasting through here. A success story at every board meeting is always really another good way to do it. You know, stick it on the agenda, a 5-minute success story. Look what happened to this child. Look what happened in this classroom. Look what this teacher just did. Something every time that you can walk out of here and say, I just heard the most amazing thing. This was really great, and I want to tell you. You know, because if I don't know what to say, I don't say anything, or I say something else. So, you know, have a success story. It may also be that you're going to bring up a hurdle. And I don't like to say bad news, you know, but every organization has challenges and hurdles along the way. And if you don't, you're not trying enough things, you know. And so if there's a hurdle, whether it's a funding hurdle or a big test you're preparing for, whatever it might be, you know, a new study that showed your reading grew in these 3 classes and not in this one, and you're going to work on that. You want to also be able to bring up the hurdles, because that elevates everybody's understanding that nobody's perfect, but they may have ideas to how to make these hurdles better. So a board gets amplified input if they do that as well. So ideas, concerns, and so forth. One of the things that is always frustrating to me, and this every nonprofit I deal with, is they don't have a really good system for getting good new ideas in or recommendations or suggestions. And so well-meaning people who care about whatever mission it is, you know, saving trees, dogs, educating children, getting rid of plastic, it really doesn't matter. They don't know what to do with their good ideas. And so I can't urge you strongly enough to put in place a process that starts with the school opening again in August that says, here's how you introduce some ideas. But to the flip side, for all of you who passionately care about it, you need to be part of the solution, not just part of the idea. So that whether it's a card that says, you know, often I'll put something in 3 columns that says, what? I'm concerned about X. So what? And it's a problem because, or it's an opportunity because, now what? What? So what? Now what? And the now what is, and what can we do about it? Now maybe the idea that's presented to you isn't realistic, because a lot of things look very easy to people from the outside who don't see the budget and see how much is encumbered and is fixed. You can't change around for discretionary dollars. They say, oh, they must be able to spend money, they have all this money. Well, yeah, but most of it is not free money. You know, it's tagged, it's specified. So you don't have as much as you might think you would. And those things, it looks easier from the outside. But at least if the policy says, if you want to suggest something, you have to be, you know, or make a recommendation, be part of the solution. Because if you're not part of the solution, you're still part of the problem. Because now we have one more thing to think about we don't have an answer for. And so you can start a discussion. So I would put that to the responsibility of everyone here. And that's that collaborative role that you can really play. I'm going to skip a couple of things here. Being transparent takes time. It takes somebody, and it may be somebody on the board, who gets assigned the job of thinking about, let's look at all the ways in which we could have more communication. And make that a real role, and make it a process, and make it something you really invest in. And you work with the staff who also has that commitment, and the staff person gets assigned to be the partner in that. Because you have to work together in all these things. It will help a lot in those kinds of communications. Okay. Switching really quickly to tracking trends. It is incumbent upon every nonprofit board to track trends and to manage data really well. And I saw at our retreat in July, you had a good report, somebody was brought in, they were tracking reading scores, you know, we were able to see how they were improving and the efforts that were going there. That's one form of data that's really important, and it tells you, are we delivering on the promise at the school? So that's a very specific micro kind of tracking of data. Others would be surveying, sending out a quarterly survey to families about, you know, maybe just 2 questions every quarter that you want to get some input on, you know, and then gathering that all up and thinking about it. Can you follow through on every single thing you find out? No, but over time, you begin to get enough good information that it helps you make intelligent decisions, because you begin to track a trend on something. So just because I take a survey, you want to thank the people who did it, maybe share some of the results, and say we are going to use this information going forward. Because people don't fill out surveys because they don't think anybody ever cares. So you have to say at least we paid attention and here's what happened. But maybe it's surveying, maybe it's whatever else you want. The macro sorts of things, though, you can get help from the school districts, from the chambers of commerce, from other places to be tracking the demographic shifts, to be tracking economic shifts, to be tracking things that are influencing your community, changes in what business wants or is willing to support. What are funders looking at? If you go after fundraising, which you do, but nobody's tracking the trends in fundraising, you're going to fall behind in being successful in fundraising. And they are shifting like mad at the moment. Any of us who are out there trying to raise funds know. It's a huge changing landscape. And to keep up with it is hard. But maybe there is somebody in your community who does that for a living, who might be willing to help you, to consult with you, to give you, input on those kinds of things. So all of that has to be tracked. From a board's perspective, I always remind every board that I work with, when you wake up in the morning and you read your newspaper on your phone or your internet feed or a real newspaper or whatever you do to get news, try to think of at least 3 of the stories that might have an impact on your nonprofit staying in business or going out of business. Because you have to get your mindset around what gives us opportunities and what puts us out of business. And pretty soon you can begin to gather stories and say, here's an interesting thing for us to take a look at. Maybe even bring it in. Maybe have a little time in boards when things are a little less fraught than they are at the moment, but have 5-10 minutes where you spend time thinking about the environment around you. Because when boards get to a really good place, they're able to do at least 25% or more in what we would call environmental scanning. What's happening around us that gives us opportunities or could put us out of business? And you want to be thinking and talking about those things. And I'll throw out one tool. You've probably all heard of the SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's useful, but from my point of view, in strategic planning, which at one point you'll get to in a more intense way, if you start with what's strong and weak about us, you're in the wrong place. You want to think about what ought, the last two letters, the opportunities and threats. What ought we be doing going forward? What are 2 or 3 major thematic big things we should be doing? And then try to figure out to get you there. If you could recreate yourself and be in a different place a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, where you are, then think about how you're strong or weak to get to where you want to get to. So see what I'm saying? Start with the back end of it, not where you're strong and weak. Because otherwise you just kind of eke forward. You don't really move forward as much as you'd like to. Okay, let's skip a couple of these things here. Okay, so accountability, the last thing I just want to take a look at. We talked just very briefly at different times about SMART goals. Those are ones that are measurable, that are specific, that are timely in your goals. But the key for all of them is that they should be results-oriented. So you're going to have an executive director coming on, right? And you're going to say to this person, here's the goals we want you to achieve. This is our vision. These are the specific goals we're going to hold you accountable for. Let me just give you an example of how people mix up the techniques to get you to the results you want with thinking they are the goals. So people often say, we need a new marketing plan. Why? I mean, I could give you a whole new marketing plan, but you still might not get where you want to get. The marketing plan is a tool on the way to something. So maybe the new marketing plan is because what you'd really like is an expanded, detailed improvement of your reputation in the following 3 ways. We would like people to think of us as X, Y, and Z. And that detailed marketing plan now is no longer a goal. It's a means to what you want to get to. And that's the trouble that boards fall into very often, because they can be check marking this person, put out the releases, they had more articles on the social media, et cetera, but it still didn't work because they're not looking at the right end of that equation. So I highly recommend that you really think hard about those results, and you don't have a lot of time for next year to do a really full-on strategic plan. So for where you are now, you need to pick about 4 really good results that by the end of next year you'd like to have in place. Very specific results, very doable, achievable results, very timely results. Make sure they have metrics. How are you going to measure them? Because if you don't also know what you very specifically want, you can't set up the measurement systems at the beginning to track what you got there. And that's where often people end up too. They have a goal, but they don't know where they started, so they don't know how far they got. And it's really hard to celebrate we're good compared to what? Where do we need to be? So you're wanting to set those up with reporting systems and all the rest. And let me just give you an example of also the board needs to have a uniform agreement on what those will be. And that sounds so simple, but I can't tell you the number of fundraisers that I've been involved in my life. And I'll say to a board afterwards, so how'd it go? Oh, it was really good. We had more people than last year. That's nice. Somebody else will say, not so many people came, but everyone who was there had fun. The food was good, we got press, And everybody had a different point of view as to what success was going to be. And that's okay if there's 3 or 4 measurements of success, but you should know up front, because then you can actually design it to achieve those things. And so I'm just going to recommend as you start out each new thing you think about this year, as you're taking in data and you know where you want to go, make sure that you have a uniform agreement up front as to what is success. So you have 150 students starting in August, let's say, and you'd like to have 175 or 200 by the next year. If you have 150 students and they stayed all the way around the whole year, would that be a successful year? Feels pretty good. But only if they come back again. Only if they bring their younger brother and sister. Only if they told their neighbor across the street. And by the way, not half the faculty left, or whatever it is. So be as specific as you can, because it's also very hard for staffs and directors and supporters to know where you're going. And I'm not saying you haven't been, but I'm just reminding everybody at this juncture, because it's an intense juncture in your history, to be really clear with each other and help each other achieve those goals. So the other thing too, as you have staff, this is a collaborative role. And we all know that if you're in an office, most all of you get evaluated once a year. There's an annual performance review, how you do. I would suggest that annual is too long to wait. I mean, you need to do it for sure, but I would give quarterly reviews on the way towards the ultimate goal. So it's much easier for all of us to accomplish a certain number of steps and have a sense of achievement. And we know we're good. And then a few more, and we're getting our way to where we want to be. And if you've timed your goals out, it's pretty easy to see how we're doing on the way. Sometimes if you wait till the end, you could have made midpoint corrections. You could have added in some information because things changed in the community, or another opportunity came up or something, and you can build on those. So make sure you do. It's your annual performance reviews for key staff, senior staff. But I would suggest good conversations along the way too. It helps you track how you're doing. should go along. Okay, making some sense, everybody. So we've talked a lot about, very quickly about being transparent, and that's two-way, building that ethos of trust, being willing to tell the good and the bad, tracking trends that are happening on a macro scale, and in your micro, very inside your own school year. And I would suggest that you will, at a later time, have a chance to build a dashboard. And the dashboard is a tool that we use in boards, that a board gets at the start of every meeting, that literally tells it how it's doing. And it's called a dashboard on purpose, because we all get in a car, we put the key in, we turn the ignition, and what happens? In front of us, we get a couple of indicators. We see if we have any gas, so we know how far we can go. We see if we're too hot or we're too cold. And we see, maybe our oil or our check engine light, or we left the door open, or whatever. And so that dashboard is an indicator of our health and our possibilities. And that's what we do with the dashboard. We'll say, what are the indicators you want to know every month that will tell you the school's in good shape? How many students, how many teachers, how many projects? I mean, you decide. And then that comes to you. And they're very, very useful tools. Because quickly and often graphically, you can see very easily how you're doing. And then you go, uh-oh, here's a glitch. Let's dig into that a little bit more. Because you get otherwise endless numbers and columns in front of you. And it's a glaze, over you're tired at the end of the day, even if you get it beforehand. So think about those kinds of things. And last but not least is making SMART goals. So that's tonight's stuff.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for JP?
Yeah, questions?
Board members?
All right.
Thank you. Chloe, did you have a question?
I wanted to ask her a question, but I don't know if it's okay.
That's fine.
Okay. So, I don't know how much you know about us, but we're clearly divided as parents. There's a group that's started, and it just, Amanda and I have talked about it. Then there's another group that started, and they want to do committees, they want to do work, actions, take action on whatever was that we need to work on. We're clearly divided. So I wonder if you have ideas on how we can work together. And also, I think a lot of egos get hurt and people want to, be okay, I brought this idea, but because you said it, I'm not going to do it even though it's my idea, but now you have it. So I wonder if you have any suggestions for that.
Sure. It's a long thing, and we deal with this all the time, and you're not alone. That does not comforting in any way, I'm sure. I would ask you two questions to think about. Divided meaning we oppose each other, or we have different things we're interested in? Because I'm interested in doing X, and you're interested in doing Y, and we need X and Y here. Good. We can start to divide out. You take the Ys, I'll take the X's, we'll move forward. That's different than we have X and opposed to Y. So part of it is listening to when we say things like that. That's my role always as a facilitator is, what am I hearing? Am I hearing anger because we have different points of view, or we just have lots of different things? So it usually takes an impartial person to be sitting down and bringing two sides together and saying, what do we agree on? Because there are certain things we will agree on. And all of the theory in the world has to take into account that this is being done by real human beings. And as you say, human beings have egos, they have concerns, they have emotions, and so when we're making tough choices that the board has to do, one of the things I said to them last week is you have to check your agenda at the door, your personal agenda at the door, and you always have to say, what's the best for the school? So taking all that aside from two sides, if I were to facilitate a discussion, I would say, what's really going to be the best out of this course of action? Where does it take us to make the school better? How does this course of action take us someplace that makes the school better? Can we agree on any parts of those? Are we willing to concede? Are we, build a consensus? And it has to be that nobody's right and wrong. We're all here for the school. But all of your best intentions and it's your children, I know I have children and I have grandchildren, I get that. It's really their choice. It's the board's choice in every case. So just like the customers don't get to tell Nordstrom, how to do it, or I can't tell SPCA what to do. I can make suggestions, I can make ideas, but they're there. And, and so we have to make a really good case for a point of view. Help them see, think about what I said, the what, so what, and what if. Frame it up rather than say, I want this. Here's what I see. This is what it concerns me. Here's the pluses, here's the minuses, and here's what I'd like to see happen. And I think if we tried this, we might get X. So it's not easy. It will be, first of all, assume that everybody has the best intention. That's going to happen. And then think about those. So that's a short answer.
Thank you.
But
Yes.
help some?
Thank you.
I'd get it started. Mark.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to 5.2, the July 1st budget. I'm sorry, it was Kat.
No,
On there.
okay. I don't have
Do you mind if we talk to Donna before we take you? You're next on the list, but if you...
Oh, no, that's fine.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Donna, so we're gonna go over the July 1st budget.
Hi, Donna.
Hello.
And I'm gonna leave this conversation, Donna, only because you and I have worked on this, and I know you're not feeling well, so I wanna say thank you for attending us tonight. I appreciate it, you being available tonight. I'm gonna make it brief so that you can rest.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
I'm
kind
sorry.
of a bad stage, so I'm pretty rocky.
Well, I'll try to lead this and answer as many questions as I can. Okay,
Okay.
so, so does the board have a copy of this?
Yes.
So I send this with the agenda attached. And I first want to say that this is the second version of the budget that we have put together. We have, after May, we lost a significant number of families who had intended to enroll and returning families who we were counting on. So we're down to about 170 returning students, not families, returning students. And so we budgeted for next year for 190. We had to be realistic. And we then went back to looking at the 190 number and decided that 8 teachers would be sufficient to place the 190 students. Then we had meetings with the OCC, we had meetings with the DLAC, and I also had a brief conversation with Agustin about what should we do and what should be realistic for student enrollment and teachers. Again, you need the teachers so you can recruit the students, and you need the students so you can recruit the teacher. And I kept asking myself, well, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? The teachers or the kids? What do I bring first? And then a group of parents got together and decided that they were going to make every effort to recruit new families and bring in new students. And I appreciate the efforts of the parents. They had 1 or 2 meetings, I'm not sure, I want to say 2 meetings, is that correct? Two meetings. They have distributed flyers. They have contacted families who were intending to leave and asked them or tried to convince them to stay. And so that might have been successful to some degree, because now as I look at the list, there's more than 190 on the list. So in meeting with the staff, I spoke with Lucy and Erika and some other staff members, and we looked at the student enrollment. Potentially for next year, we really won't know how many students we will have until August when school starts. And then even then, within the first 2 weeks, you may get X number of students and then they drop or they just don't show up. And so this is just all hypothetical, keeping our fingers crossed, being optimistic. Consequently, given the efforts of the parents who have been very proactive, and I appreciate it, I want to thank them for their efforts. We now have hired a 9th teacher. So we were hoping to hire a 10th teacher so that we can reassure the parents that we will be fully staffed and that we need their students here. Otherwise, the classes could be severely impacted and then having to dissolve that class of, let's say, 34 children into 2 separate classes later on can be devastating for the children. It's just not good practice. It's not best practice. So we decided, well, let's bring in 9, 10 teachers and let's see what happens. We're going to be optimistic, but we do have to be very cautious about our expenditures throughout the year. The classes will be a lot smaller than 28, 29, probably in the 23, 25 range. Some of them, and some other ones in the 20s, 22 at this point. So our new teacher has been offered a contract. She said yes. We sent the contract to her today. She is going to start training with us immediately. We made another offer, person declined. So we made 2 offers, and they declined. So we're now interviewing another person soon. We don't know, the person has not gotten back to us on a date and time yet. So as soon as we know that, we will know more specifically if we're going to have a 10th teacher. So I have vague information here. I don't have concrete information like prior years where I know how many are returning, how many new families. It's all up in the air because I don't know. So based on 190 and keeping our fingers crossed that we will have 250. Families are very hopeful and optimistic, hoping to have a wait list even starting off the year, but if not, soon after that. So that is very optimistic, and I appreciate that optimism of theirs. So I gave a quick introduction, Donna, of how we calculated this budget. Do you want to pick it up from here, and then I'll follow and tag right along in the conversation?
Okay, sure. Well, as Juanita said, all the revenues are based on enrollment of 190 and ADA of 182.40. So the numbers that you see on the income statement, those are based on the lower ADA number. The estimated revenues at this point are $2,343,983. Again, based on ADA of 182.40. For the salaries, there's still the same number of teachers. This is based on 9 teachers. But the instructional aides, classified teacher aides, those are reduced down to, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them now. That's the estimate. That's what this budget is built on, that estimate. Let's see here. I don't have a lot to say about it, Juanita.
Okay, so not much changed on the expenditures. The only change we had was on the salaries, only because the teachers who left had a different pay, and now the teachers coming in, many of them are new, not all of them, of course. We have 2 or 3 who are experienced, and it's going to all be based on their education and experience for their placement when it comes to teachers. And all of the other positions are negotiable, like I mentioned to you, on the salaries, on the salary end. Here, we estimated the executive position to be at the maximum allowed per the schedule. Now, remember that if you bring an interim, you'll have to negotiate that interim salary based on experience and education. They may be higher than what we estimated. Temporarily, that interim may be here for 3 months, 6 months, up until whatever, as long as you feel it's necessary till you fill that position. And so that, everything else remained the same. There weren't any changes to the expenditures as far as books and supplies, travel and so on. There wasn't anything there. The only item we added today was the induction program that we didn't originally anticipate for the induction. So we now anticipate of having a couple of teachers. New induction is the program, the service and program where teachers need to be enrolled in order for them to clear their credential. It is required by the state of California. In some places, the teachers are asked to pay for it. In other places, half and half. percentage of it, Oasis has decided to cover the full cost of their induction. It ranges from $2,500 up to $4,000 per candidate. This just depends, and it keeps going up every year. And we contract with North Coast from Sonoma. They provide service. So that we added this morning because we didn't know we were going to have, and so now we do. Induction is not required for those who have emergency permits. It's only required for those who have finished their program and are ready to, they have a preliminary and they're ready to clear. And they have 5 years to do that. So we added that $8,000 because we didn't have it before. The budget is fluid, and keep in mind that every month you have to review the financials. And there's a first interim and a second interim report as well. So therefore, if you need to add something or take out, delete something from this, the board has the liberty to do that in order to maintain a healthy budget, yearly budget, but also to keep the services of the students in the community so they're not compromised. So this is what the budget is and what it looks like at this point. We have a net decrease at end of the year. Is that correct, Donna?
Yes, at this point, there's a net decrease of $377,000.
So we need to bring more students in. We need to retain those students and those families who might be considering leaving or not returning next year. That much I can say. In order for us to not have that $377,000, we anticipate negative net decrease. We anticipated an enrollment of 235 and an ADA of 2. I can't remember the exact number, but I know enrollment of 235. So that in mind, and families keep encouraging our potential families to enroll. A few families have come in and enrolled their children these past 2 days, so they're here. And also by adding a 9th class for now, can't say a 10th because I don't have a 10th teacher. By adding a 9th or 10th class, that opens up some spots for other grade levels. We did have a class impacted with 30-some students, so we're hoping to make the classes smaller and not the same size as they would be in their school district of residence. So it's a selling point, I guess, something to attract the families. In that case, the priority wouldn't be to have an extra 1 aide per class. The priority is to have a teacher in.
So a 10th teacher?
A 10th teacher.
Is that anticipated in this?
No, it's not anticipated. It's not anticipated.
Okay, so
Because we just hired the teacher today.
so this net decrease, notice net decrease, this can get back onto the black if we get to higher ADA.
The higher ADA, the higher enrollment, the higher ADA, yes.
Right, enrollment, right. Okay.
Both.
Right,
You have to
right.
get enrollment and ADA.
And then the ADA that comes off.
They go hand in hand. The difference is that you may have 250 students enrolled, but daily average, how many do you actually have attending school? I mean, maybe 240, 245, which we want the highest number possible for students to come in. And it's bringing them in for as long as they can stay, and then leaving for their appointments or whatever they need to. So they need to be here at least for part of the day for their attendance to count for that.
Juanita,
Yes.
as you can see from this year in 17-18, we're estimating the ADA to be 238.71, and it's still, the budget is still projecting a net loss of 136,000, but that's because of the heavy load of instructional specialists, instructional aides.
Instructional aides. And you and I talked about this. We anticipated this. I knew the hit was going to be in the negatives if we didn't keep up our enrollment and our ADA. And unfortunately, it declined lower than we anticipated or lower than we hoped for. So we kind of knew, and so we learned from that. So moving forward, keeping the 5 instructional assistants only should be enough for now, for next year. So we don't run into this same problem again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is even if the enrollment in ADA goes up, you're still going to have to be careful about how many instructional assistants you bring in, because otherwise you'll just end up in the same situation as this year.
I'm recommending that we don't bring any instructional assistants, that right now, the 5 would cover 1 instructional assistant for every 2 teachers. So that would be
Right.
the max. That would be most responsible action at this point for next year. Okay. Any questions?
Questions from the board on this budget?
Donna, this is Jorge. I remember you said that the employee benefits on the health and welfare was gonna go up a little bit, but as I look at this budget allocated for 18 and 19, it's like 50% more for what we spent on 17. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? I mean, you have 142,638 estimate actual for 17-18 on the total health and welfare, and it jumped to 219 for next year. I know you did mention that it was going up, but this was like 50% of what we were spending. Is like that because we just allocated higher than, and it's gonna be less?
Do you want to respond? Do you want me to respond?
I can't hear, Juanita.
He's asking if the health benefits go up, I believe you said 15%?
50% from what we paid
Well,
for 17.
we estimated about, I think, 10%.
Right, we did
Let me
estimate
see here.
10,
Let
but
me
it's
look at
50.
the dollar worksheet. I've got-
50? What do you see 50?
It's on my-
One paid at least 50, went from 142 to 219.
Oh, you know what, we did it based on actual. So, if the benefit per person went up to $948.18. And that's based on the 7/1/18 renewal quote. So this budget is built on actual.
So there's an estimate on the actual 17-18 then is incorrect from 142 to what we budgeted for
Sorry,
next
say that
year?
again?
So he's asking if this is incorrect. So point out the page that you're looking at.
You're looking at the difference between 17-18 and 18-19?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, he's looking
Okay.
at that.
What we have to do at the beginning of the year is assume that everyone's going to want benefits.
Right.
But that's never the case, and especially it doesn't seem like with Oasis. So at the beginning of the year, we budget at the maximum that it could possibly be, and then in first interim, we take the actual, who is actually receiving benefits, and we adjust it down according to, as I said, just actually receiving benefits.
Yeah, and we did have a few staff members decline health coverage this year because they had double coverage somewhere else, and so this would be triple coverage for them.
Yeah.
So that's the case. So this is actual.
This number here is worst case scenario.
All right, okay. Thank
Every
you.
single person takes their benefit.
Thank you for answering. I saw here.
And so, hold on, let me ask a question too. So in that particular situation, let's say that, August 1st, everyone's on board, they decline their health benefits, that original budget is redistributed, or is just not accounted for at that point because we're not going to be using it?
We would reduce the health and welfare to
Right. What the actuals would be,
what it appears will be actual
Right.
at year end.
and then we just disregard the
And
remainder
then
of that.
it folds into the fund balance, so
Okay,
your
that's what
net
I'm saying.
decrease would decrease. You would have, say for instance, it's 50,000 less.
Yes,
Well, then your net decrease is gonna go from 377 to 327.
got it,
Yeah, the net decrease.
Yeah. okay, got it, yeah. Okay, yes.
On page 3,
Page 3.
the academic coach line, that has been advertised everywhere as a part-time position, yet shows an increase of $14,000.
I'm sorry, what page was it again?
3,
Okay.
and the salary for the academic coach that is being posted as a part-time position, but shows a $14,000 increase on the budget.
Right now, with the way we budgeted this was for a full-time position. However, depending on how many teachers you have, new teachers that need assistance, you may need the full-time position. So that's why it's in the budget as full-time, even though it's advertised as part-time right now. Again, this keeps changing based on which teachers you actually recruit and which ones need additional support. If you get a high number of experienced teachers, you don't need a full-time coach. But if you get a high number of beginning teachers, you will need a full-time academic coach. It's budgeted as full-time right now,
Okay,
but it's advertised as part-time. Now, if this position ends up being part-time, there would be savings in the budget
And it goes
Then it goes-
against the
against the decrease.
decrease. Yeah.
and then on page 5, for the class teacher technology, there's a double in that salary. And that's another $15,000.
This position is most likely going to require additional time because they are going to be teaching after school, and they're most likely going to work 40 hours instead of the 28 or 30 they're working currently,
Okay,
to serve GATE students.
okay. Where is the assistant director on the budget? I mean, did I just miss it?
We made that change this morning as it's an instructional coordinator. It's shown as instructional coordinator. At the last meeting, the board reclassified that instructional coordinator position as assistant director. So just the name was changed, the duties remain almost the same. So,
On page 4.
instructional coordinator.
Oh, okay.
And this
okay.
morning, we made that change because Donna was not aware of the
change,
change
okay.
which recently happened.
Then, so the only other question was just what you guys were talking about, the benefits. So when you do that budget and, counting everyone, just, worst case scenario, are you counting only everyone who qualifies for benefits, or are you considering everyone?
Every full-time employee who's qualified to enroll in the program.
Okay. And then this is, so last week we were 220 students, but now we're back down to 170 again.
That's not what I said. I never said that.
No, so what it is the recruitment efforts that are going on right now is completely separate than the establishment of this budget. This budget needs to be conservative so that we can start at a starting point. Now, if it changes, this is going to change at some point.
Right,
Budgets do change throughout.
Yeah, I just thought we had gone up, so things were looking good. We'd gone
Yeah, but we
170 to
can't.
190 to 220, and now we're back down to 170,
So it's based on, this particular one is based on 190
Right.
enrollment. And so that's where it's going to stay, to be submitted conservatively to the state. At interim 1, which is somewhere in December, if things change, if we have a better feel of the insurance information, the actual amount of teachers that we have on board, an actual pricing for an executive director, all these things are going to be readjusted. Hopefully we'll get to the
yeah,
to
but
the red.
170 is the more accurate number right now.
190.
Oh, 190.
190.
Okay.
When I said the number 170, which I only mentioned once,
What was
was
that
at the very beginning of my presentation, when I said that in May,
Yeah.
once this letter was sent out to the community,
Okay.
our numbers dropped significantly to 170.
Okay.
However, thanks to the efforts of the parents who have been very active, that has gone up again,
Thank you.
and those who had expressed interest in leaving are staying.
Yes, Sandra.
On page 2, where it says mandated cost reimbursement, that went up by, 35-something thousand dollars. Why did that go up so high?
Mandated cost reimbursement discretionary.
Yes.
Discretionary, that's a fluid number that it's entirely up to the governor whether to even allocate those funds to the schools. This year, according to the May revise, the governor budgeted $344 per student based on their prior year P2 ADA, but now the legislature did not pass that. They passed it at roughly 160. The budget is not final though, so we really don't know what that amount is going to be until we get a final budget. The last school service article that we got, that's where we were told that the discretionary could potentially go down to 160, but on the other hand, the legislature voted to increase the LCFF funding by 0.7. So perhaps it will kind of level out. It will still be less than what was originally anticipated, But again, we really don't know the bottom line. We don't know what it's really going to be until the budget is passed, until the governor takes his last pass at it, and it's a done deal.
And even for other areas of the budget, like the SB 740, there may be an allocated amount, and then based on how many applicants and how many eligible schools receive the funds, there could be a reduction at any time. That's why the board, again, you have a responsibility to make sure we're conservative with our expenditures, knowing that the state has started to do some cuts here and there, and will probably continue as we saw that trend in the past. And that is the responsibility of the board to make sure that we don't have ongoing expenses, as Donna recommended, well, Donna mentioned it before, and using our reserves for ongoing expenses. And that is not a responsible action or decision. So.
Okay.
I have one last question, just on the property building rental, the actual show 116, and then the 2018-19 is budgeted for $188,000. It's like a $65,000 increase. What's the reason for that?
For the property
Page
rental,
11.
page 11, I'm going to look at page 11 right now. And property rental, let's see, I'm looking at
The fourth line.
from 116 to 188.
Yes.
Property rental, this is how much Oasis will have to pay. Remember, this is broken down into two separate lines. SB 740 is what SB 740 might cover, not that that's what it will cover. The 188 is what Oasis will need to cover. The rent total amount does not change. It's good and secured till June 30th, 2021 per the signed agreement with the landlord, Tony. So, now Oasis will have to, if you add 188 and 141, those two will add up to the total rent paid every year. That doesn't change with ADA or enrollment. That remains the same. So the less SB 740, the less students enrolled in an ADA, the more Oasis will have to pay out of pocket. So that's going to be a hit based on low ADA and enrollment. So is it clear? It's the total amount. SB 740 pays so much, and it's based on ADA. So if our ADA, let's say hypothetically, drops to 100 students, then Oasis, that 188 will go up to 210.
So are you, so,
It goes up because the rent is the same. You just are getting less SB 740 based on your ADA. So you have to pay more out of Oasis's regular funds, or general funds, general funds.
okay, let's just look at 17-18 for those two lines, right? I think I'm understanding the confusion. So for last year, this current year, it's 116 and 141. How is it that the next year, if it's the same amount of rent that you're paying, it's going to be 188?
Why is it going up to 188 if it's the same rent from 17-18 to 18-19, being that there is a 188 amount for the rent coming out of the general funds, Donna?
Okay, let me look here.
That was the question, right?
This year, the rent should be, I'm trying to think, the rent
remains the same. Remember we talked?
remains the same. So I'm wondering if this year might be, I'm not sure. I don't have my records here. My records are all at work. But I'm guessing that I think this year must be under budgeted, and I can't tell you why because I don't have the second interim in front of me to look. But if you look at July 1, 18-19, that is what it would be because it's the 20,900 times 12 months for the main buildings, and then there's 6525 times 12 months for the playground area. So that adds up to the 329,094 that's budgeted. So again, I'm sorry, but I can't answer that question without having my first.
So it's likely that the 17-18 was under budgeted.
It may be. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. 257, 135. Yeah, see that looks too low to me.
So let's look at this. Let's look at it tomorrow.
However,
17, 18, and 18, 19.
The actual is, Donna, the actuals for 12 months, all properties, are those two amounts.
I'm sorry, say that again?
So the actuals for 18-19 are what you have here, the 188 and the 141. Is that correct?
That is what it will be next year.
Okay,
The
so I think
total
that's what's important.
rent
Last
for the
year, we'll
main
figure out
building
whenever it
and
is.
landscaping will be $329,094. That's based on a rental of $20,900 a month for the main building and $65.25 a month for the, oh, wait a minute.
We have like 3 checks we write for the rent.
No, let me look at this again. That 6525 is annual, so the July 1 budget, I need to revise that, Juanita, because I took that 6525 times 12, and it should only be 6525. So it should be 257,325, which is exactly the same as this year. So that's where our problem is. So I want to take that 188 and reduce it down
To 116,060.
so that it should, the total for the year should be 250,800 for the main buildings and 6525 for the landscaping. I mean, not for the playground area, for the year. So
So,
it should 257,325. So I'm gonna revise this budget, and it should be exactly the same as this year.
Thank you.
and even then, SB 740, we may be receiving less if our ADA
that's-
drops. But the total
Well, the
amount.
thing about SB 740, Juanita, is your cap. So it's, there's a worksheet that we have to use, and,
I know there is a cap. There's a maximum you can get.
there's a maximum that you can get, and it's either 75% of your rent,
Or,
or, what they do is they calculate out 75% of the rent.
All right, but this is what we need,
So,
and that's what's budgeted.
based on the rent of 250,800, that comes to 188.10. And then, we use the 1117 per ADA, which is, it's still uncertain whether they're going to pay that much. It might be at the 75%. So that's why we use the lower amount. So you take the 1,117 times the estimated 182.40 ADA, and that adds up to an annual ADA allowance of 203,741. But you're capped at 75% of your rent. It's whichever is less.
oh,
If your
whichever.
ADA allowance is less, that's what you get. If your annual maximum rent is less, that's what you get.
I was wishing it was whichever's greater, but no, it's whichever's less. Got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Donna.
whichever is less, that's what you'll get. And there's still talk about the SB 740 for next year, that is, they're gonna have a problem with the money next year too.
okay.
So that amount goes less, drop, and then we have to pay out of pocket more. Okay.
Mr.
Thank you,
Sandoval.
Donna.
So
One
but
last
I will
question.
reduce that rent to what it is this year, and that's gonna change your bottom line
You
to
said
about
only keep the same one last
$305
question,
decrease.
so-
305, so the bottom line is
Apologies, we-
305 now.
Oh, I'm sorry, say again.
305, and then.
I'm sorry, I apologize for that, Juanita.
Okay.
Okay, that's good. What was that? That's
That one.
a good
305
thing
instead of 370.
305, all right, thank
305
you.
instead of
Mr.
370.
Sandoval, one last question.
Just because, I found 65,000 and our decrease in our teacher's aid was 65,000, so can we have our teacher's aids back?
Yeah, we're still on the red.
Yeah, let's do the math, and so.
Nice try. Once we're in the black, then we can start adding.
101.
Thank you. Was that it?
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you,
for
Donna.
coming.
Good
Feel
summer.
better soon.
Oh, thank you very much. All right, have a nice evening.
Good summer.
Bye-bye.
All right. Cat. Stretch and wake up.
Let me just stretch a second. It's been a long day. Hello, guys. How are you guys? Okay, so we did field day. I unfortunately couldn't be there, but I want to thank all the parents that helped out, that were there, that provided the help, that bought stuff. I really, truly did appreciate that very much. The staff, the teachers who helped out also, I thought that was great. From what I heard and pictures I saw, it was a good time. The kids had a good time. The food was great, and so I'm just very thankful for all that support and help from everybody that made field day possible and made it, go run smoothly. I was a little bit scared that things were not going to and panicking, but the parents kept texting me, everything's going good, everything's taken care of, and that's awesome. That's an awesome feeling to have, so thank you guys. And then, so we did work on the volunteer removal policy draft. I'll send it to you, I know it's not on there. But I thought it was very good, everybody collaborated, we had a lot of good input, we changed a lot of stuff, and everybody actually agreed on it, which I thought was awesome. And so then I'll go ahead and forward it to you, and then you can forward it to the rest of the board.
Was there a title change by any chance?
Yes.
We collaborated then.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if one of the changes was a title change. All right, thank you.
And then, so another thing, I know that there's the parent committee trying to get the students, and there was talks about other committees. And so I've had a couple OCC members ask, like if they could be part of that. So hopefully I'm trying to do a summer meeting, just whenever everybody can meet. And then probably go over there because I would like maybe one person from the OCC that's a voting member to be part of that and help out, and then be able to come back and tell us what's going on. Like, I haven't been able to be part of the parent recruitment committee, but I think it's awesome. I know Claudia has, she's part of the OCC, so she can come back and say, this is what we've done. But I think that it's great that the parents are doing that, because not one person can't do everything. And like, for me, it's like, that's great. Parents are stepping up and they're doing something, and that's awesome to hear that the numbers are going up, and then it's their time to shine. And I think that that's great. That's a good collaboration with OCC too. And so I'm hoping to do a summer OCC meeting. I don't know when. I have to reach out to my members also to talk about, the OCC finances, what worked, what didn't work, what our plans are for this year, what can we implement, again, with all these committee ideas that were coming up. Maybe who wants to be part of something. I don't have to be part of every single committee because I get tired too, and I'm part of other ones. But it would be great to have, a voting member be part of a certain committee, help them, because some people have never maybe taken the leadership and kind of like, guide, I want to say. And then have those parents come and be part of the OCC so we can all be under the same bylaws and follow everything. So that's my plan for a summer meeting. I won't know, I'll post it up within 72 hours and let you guys know. And then hopefully you guys can come. I don't know if we'll have it here at school if we can, or somewhere outside, but I'll let everybody know. And then I just want to thank my OCC members that are here. Thank you guys for your hard work this year. I truly appreciate it. I couldn't have done my year without you guys. I appreciate that, and hopefully this coming year we can do good things and, get more parent participation, which is what we need. Maybe a couple more fundraisers, and definitely, oh, sorry. I saw your finger. And yeah, so, the camaraderie and just build more. And JP, I wrote down a lot of the notes that you said. I really appreciate you being here. I think that's great. I learned a lot. And I'm hoping that I can email all the OCC members, because I think all of this would be good also, not just for the board, but for the OCC also. And so thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yes, you have questions.
So you took my thunder.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to offer that perhaps one of our board developments, or maybe add on a development for
Yeah, I think it worked well because it's leadership training, and whether you're leading board or.
So I think that maybe in your summer meeting, there's some time for JP to
we'll work on it.
do a workshop, a development for OCC.
I think that's great.
What do you
It's
think?
good.
Yeah, I think it would be good. We sort of started that a little bit in our retreat in July because a couple of council members had a chance to be there, and that was helpful.
Yeah, I just think it's not just for, I think the parent group would benefit tremendously from an expert in development.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, I wrote down, like I said, a lot of great notes, and I think there's a lot of great stuff. And I especially like the what, so what, now what. And I definitely want to implement that in the OCC, because I am a big believer. I tell my kids, be part of the solution, not the problem. And if there's a problem, find the solution and share it. So she just reiterated that, and so I'm definitely going to take that and apply and impose that on the OCC this year. Any other questions?
I just had a comment. We lose some OCC parents because some of their kids graduated, and then we gain new ones in August. So is it possible to do that in August, so with the new parents coming on board?
Yeah, I'm back in
Well,
August.
that's a, yeah, you guys connecting for that.
I
Yes.
have one suggestion on behalf of my husband, Sergio. He is suggesting or inviting all the members of the board to come to those meetings, or be part of one of those committees that we're trying to form. I know Agustin, I thank you for always being there and, giving us your input. It's important, and you hear what we have to say, but I want to invite the rest of the board. It's a really good group. And like the first meeting we had, it was Ruth's idea to have a flyer. And now we're giving that flyer at the soccer field on Sunday. And so it's actions, we're doing actions, we're not just talking or arguing, we have actions. And so we want to invite you to be part of those committees. Each one of you can maybe participate in one of those committees and hear what we have to say.
And I cut mine, but I had, one of the things I was going to suggest is it rotates through the board, because the chairman shouldn't, he's got a lot to do to run a board, but if everybody takes a month or something, there's enough of you so that everybody gets to see the parents, they get to see you.
Invitation, friendly invitation.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public?
I have a
Yes.
comment for you, though. We haven't had a chance to talk, but I think that it's important that we collaborate with OCC. A group of us have decided, and we did talk to administration about doing a float for the kitty capers. It's the perfect theme for Oasis. It's like sea, sand, and saddles. So it's the perfect theme for us, and we've got the approval to be able to use the school to build the float out. So I think that it would be good to work with OCC to do that. So it's something I just wanted to bring up here, that we are planning that.
Okay, when's the parade?
It's
Sorry.
July 18th, I think. I'm not
No, we
positive.
used to do that.
We did it, I think 1 or 2 years, and it's in the summertime, yeah, a couple years ago we did. Maybe we can do the OCC meeting a little bit before, if everybody's there, and you can come and present that and let everybody know, like, this is what
Yeah,
we're
we want to
planning
put
and
it
see what
together
we
and
can do.
have some ideas. So.
Yeah, so I'll reach out to the voting members and see when they're available, and then I'll invite you so you can come and present. And then we can take a vote there, because I can't answer for myself, it has to be a voting thing. And then we'll decide if we want to be part of it and stuff, and then how we can help. Or even if it's not OCC parents that want to, I mean, I think that's a great thing. We can reach out to parents school-wide, hey, you want to be part of the the float or and decorating, and I think that's great. And that builds camaraderie also.
Yeah, it's great advertisement. So.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Thank you, Kat, for.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right, let's, public hearing on the budget that we just went through. Any other comments on that? So we will open public comments for a minute if there's anyone that would like to.
You skipped 5.4.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Well, it's the same that I discussed right after, proposal session.
Nothing.
Yeah, we're still in negotiations. Nothing is solidified, and there's really nothing to report beyond that. We're still working on trying to come up with an agreement that's satisfactory to the children of the school.
Are you guys having meetings, or are you just negotiating back?
Lawyer with lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah, attorneys are attorneys. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Thank you.
finalizing a contract, if you may. Yes.
I have a question. So I know we haven't heard about the playground. Is that going to still happen? I know that it was either we lose all that money or we're going to move forward with that money.
We're trying to push the contractor to hold off a little bit for us.
Okay.
Until we have made a final determination. If we have a school, we have a playground. If we don't have a school, we don't have a playground.
So it all depends.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
So that's the answer to that. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you. Then let's move on to the 6.1. I'll reopen for about a minute or two if anyone has any questions about the budget. Any other further questions, board members? It's actually for the public, but
It's very fluid.
no? Okay, we're closing that. So then we have board member's expiration term coming up, and as we do every single board member, we open up to see if the board member is wanting to renew membership. We put them on the spot.
Since you're asking me today, I'll say yes. A couple of days ago, it might be
It would
different.
have been a different
Next
story.
week, it might be different. Right now, it's fine.
Today, yes.
I don't think I expire until the end of July, though, but
Right,
Right.
but
It's coming up.
so we just want to,
just gonna.
we have to make plans in case you say no, then we move forward with that. But, okay, we look forward to you not changing your mind to tomorrow or the day after.
No.
Very well, thank you, Mike. Administration updates, if those can be as quickly as we can get them through, because we need to go through the others.
Well, as quickly as 30 seconds. Okay, well, I gave you enough information just
I know we have.
about all I needed to share with you
So,
during the budget conversation. So, all the support staff is returning. We have openings for teacher, academic coach, ELD teacher, and executive director, and robotics. So there's 5 positions open at this time. We are recruiting the best teachers we can. There aren't too many out there as far as applicants is concerned, and then those who are interested then change their mind for whatever reason, or the offer doesn't work for them. So that's where we are with the staff recruitment. Students and families, the group of the parents have.
yeah, so I just want to comment on the recruitment for the executive director. So a couple of board members are probably going to get together pretty quickly to figure out, and Kat, we might invite you to that conversation.
How about you do invite me? Not Mike.
To put together a couple of how we're going to proceed with that. No, there's going to be people invited, obviously, but the meeting is to see what the composition of that hiring committee will be, and so on and so forth. Okay, so yeah, you'll be fine. But I just wanted to give everyone an update on what that's going to be about fairly quickly, as we need to get that going.
So, okay, so some families who were thinking of leaving are deciding to stay. And of course, we'll be surprised by the families who will think they're staying and returning and they leave. Staff members, I think, is pretty solid now. Who's going to stay is going to stay. Who has decided to move on has decided to do that. So we are shooting for 250 students and a wait list, of course. So 30 more to be added to the list and a wait list by beginning of August. Classes, I already shared that with you at the beginning of the presentation as well. 9 as of today. When that contract is returned signed, then I can count on the 9th teacher, and then a 10th one. We're actively recruiting for the 10th one. I will work till the last day necessary to recruit that last teacher so that we have the 10th teacher. And we can reassure the families that we do have a stable, secure staffing group to teach their child or children. Okay? Executive Director.
Question, yeah, Amanda?
Yeah, just a quick question on the family recruitment. So something was brought up, and I think it was actually at the town hall meeting, about reaching out individually to the families who have unenrolled, reaching out to them and seeing if maybe they had changed their minds, right? That was something that we talked about, Amy? So has there been any movement or progress or further discussion on that idea?
My understanding is that the parents were going to take the lead on that. It was not a lead that administration was going to take.
So how do the parents know who disenrolled and who didn't?
Yeah, I don't know, that's a question for, Lucy's not here, so I don't know. Lucy was at that conversation, I don't know.
Well,
Okay.
that's information I would not be willing to share with anyone.
That's what I mean, so-
It's confidential.
Right, so how would parents take the lead on that if they can't get that information?
There's a lot of parking lot conversation, so unfortunately I can't say how you know.
Okay.
There's nothing I can do to help you on that.
There was one suggestion for it to go back on Parent Square right now with the parents that are on there to notify them like, hey, you know what, there's still open enrollment if you haven't signed up. If you want to, we're gonna give you another couple weeks. That was something that was talked about, and they were like, yeah, we should do that, but it hasn't happened.
So, on the list, on the to-do list. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
So on the assistant director committee plan, as Agustin had mentioned, I strongly suggest that the board includes a parent of an English language learner, a voting member of the OCC, specifically the president, secretary, or treasurer, one of them three, because they have a very active role in the group, and a staff member, perhaps a teacher, and a classified staff in that group, and try to make that group as not too large, so you don't intimidate the applicants, but certainly a board member or two to be part of that group in that recruitment effort. Again, I'm going to repeat myself, but make sure you have a parent of an English language learner as part of that. And how you would identify that is by the DLAC, but it has to be a parent of an ELL. If there is a DLAC member who does not have a child of an ELL child, then that parent should not be considered, because we need to give a voice to those parents who have an English language learner. So that would be my strong recommendation to the board, to consider that when putting together the plan.
I'd like to jump on that.
Yes, please.
A long time ago, we used to actually have a child on the panel as well, one of the students. So perhaps the parent could have his or her child on. That would make sort of sense of unity amongst them. But
It could, if the child is old enough
oh,
to
sure.
sustain.
Yeah, I'm not going to go to kindergarten.
Right, so that would limit maybe only to 6th graders. There aren't too many, there are a few, but not too many.
Well, the details can be worked out.
The details can be worked out.
I think a child could easily be represented on that board.
Yeah, definitely. So that would be my recommendation for that plan, so that you can start looking at that. The position has been opened, it's open now for applicants to start applying. I have assigned the general Oasis email to get notifications. I have removed my name to be notified, so slowly I'm getting my life back at not receiving ding, 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 all these emails with notifications of applications. So I assigned, like I said, I added that email so that they can receive those notifications of applicants. The posting has all the details.
All right.
Any questions about that? Suggestion, recommendation to you all? Most likely
Where will all these emails go if you're not getting them?
no, they go to the info, and Erica has access to the info.
Okay.
It's the Oasis info,
Okay.
the cloud. And no, it goes to the info general account, and Erica accesses it.
So we should contact
Summertime, so good for.
Yes, you should contact Erica.
Is it in relation to the executive director committee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can show you, it might be a little more effective, but actually, when you click on the email link, it actually sends you to an email that is no longer active, and it sends you a link that is broken.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. Let me work on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Really look at that. Definitely.
Okay.
I can work on that with the text.
Okay. Moving on to the action items. So 8.1, approval of the proposed budget. Any questions? We got a motion to approve the budget as presented. Anyone?
I'll move that we approve the budget as presented.
Thank you. Take a second, please. Okay, second. Thank you. All those in favor of approving the budget as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One opposed. Motion moves forward. Thank you. Naming authorization removed from bank accounts. Removing you from the bank accounts? No. I'm not going to do it. All right, so this is to remove Juanita's name and signature from all bank accounts moving forward as of June 30th of this year. Can I get a motion for that, please? So move for, okay, can I get a second? Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed?
I'm not opposing. I'm making a suggestion.
Yes.
Could we combine 8.3, 8.5, and 8.6 and just see?
I would have to have that motion.
I would like to move that.
Okay.
I would like to move that we consolidate items 8.3, 8.5, and 8.6 into a single motion. And I so move that we
I
cancel
second.
the credit cards for Elizabeth and Juanita, and that we increase the credit card limit for Lucy.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approving 8.3, 8.5, and 8.6, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried for all those items. All right, let's get back to the 8.4, approval of the LCAP report.
Okay, well, I have a couple of things to report to you. So I sent that to you electronically, and the one item that I was updated on this report was the total, so on page 4, the total general fund budget expenditures for LCAP year 17-18. Right now we have $2,092,000, so $2,092,069. Oh my goodness. Above 100,000, I can't read it. So I have that number already. I also have something that Ed Vandenberg and Lucy and Anais is the ELD specialist, worked with Lucy yesterday to come up with a goal for this LCAP, and so I just got it yesterday afternoon. And there is 2 added items on page 45. So if you flip the page to page 45, is that 100% of our students will demonstrate at least 1 year's progress annually, and that at least 40% of our students will demonstrate, will be RFET.
Will be
RFET, redesignated, reclassified as English language proficient. 40% of the students will be reclassified by the end of the school year. Now I have to clarify that for 17-18, unknown should be also moved over because we don't have a baseline. We don't have all the information at this point. And let me explain why. So the unknown needs to be on 17-18, and then that, what's in 17-18 needs to be moved over. The state changed the CELT after winter break to the LCAP. And this new assessment was administered in March and April, and the assessments were sent to the state for scoring, and we, 2 weeks ago, got the results back when the students were finishing out the year. There were some results missing, so we called the state and said, where are the other tests? We sent 2 batches of, one batch and then a second batch. And they said the second batch has not been scored. That's why it's not in the packet. So we don't have data. So last day of school, we were trying to reclassify students based on the results, and trying to understand the results and what they meant, and those Spanish translated results. So we told the state they don't have anything. So we're trying to create something. So right now it's a new assessment. First year, first time being administered. We don't have all the data. By August, beginning of next year, we should have all the data put together, so I can't even log in and see what the state has on the website for Oasis. So that's why we don't have a baseline to say, and we can't even use CELT, because CELT, we only assess kindergartners, initial assessments, that's all we did. And for the LCAP, it was everyone else. So we had 2 different assessments. We'll find a way to next year make sure that those assessments have some meaning.
So can you write instead pending results of a certain date versus unknown? I mean, unknown just means that you're like, don't have
Okay, so pending results, yeah, I like it.
Pending, I mean, you're actually giving an answer, you don't have them right now, but it's a future LCAP.
Pending results, yes, yes, that's a really good idea, yes, suggestion. Pending the results, so it's gonna be in 17-18, pending results. And then 18-19.
And I'd be even more specific, and results from this test taken on this specific date.
From the ELCAP.
That way you know, like, where you're gonna get this information, and why is the information not there?
In May 2018, okay, got it. I have a note. So that's going to be changed. So from the last draft you saw, this is new. That's why I'm pointing this out. Let's see. Also, Agustin gave me feedback and pointed something out. Instead of hiring, saying on page 47, hire instructional assistants, one for every 2 classes, they have been hired. They're here, they don't need to be hired. So they're with us. The ones that will need to be hired, for instance, hire an academic coach, yes. Hire an ELD teacher, yes. Hire an ELD professional, yes. Instructional assistants, we're taking out the word hire for those positions that have been filled. Does that make sense? Okay? Because Agustin made a good point. If you say hire, it means like you don't have them yet, you're looking for them. It's like, no, we have them, we have contracts signed, and that's why we have 2 instructional assistants need to be here full-time, and the reason being is that they have to do morning recess. We are going to be short-staffed next year, meaning the office is going to be short-staffed. So I asked Mari and Alicia if they could be here in the morning to do recess supervision in the morning, because there needs to be more office staff, and we need to have more people to provide students. So, and the ones who used to provide the supervision was Daisy. So Daisy won't be here, so we need somebody to provide that support. That's one. So I'm taking out the word hire, so I just want you to know what's being taken out for Agustin's feedback after he read it. After it's numbered. And that was the other change based on what was there before and what's there now. Is the DLAC 1,500 parent training that has been added. That is part of this now. Is page 52. Page 52 is there, so the DLAC gave input, and this is what was decided. So it's part of this plan now. And the one position we had for Love and Logic was split into 2, 20% for Love and Logic and 80% for program coordinator to manage the Read Naturally program. So that we split it, we were more detailed on what percentage. Most of these amounts that we laid out here, that we listed, is salary and benefits. So those are the only changes. There's no other changes from the one before that you see on the previous draft. There's more detailed. Also, I want to thank Mike for the many years of editing my work. He edited this one more time, but he has agreed to, I asked in advance, so I don't have to ask for forgiveness, I asked for permission. If he would edit it one more time before it's published. I want this piece to be published before it's published. Keep in mind, it's quite a few pages long, so it's as good as you may be. After so many pages, your eyes and mind is like, oh my goodness. So Mike is going to give it one more read to make sure it's up to standards to be published, to be sent off to Alizal, MCOE, the state, Donna, the auditor, and the website. Everyone needs to get it by Friday. So that's one. Any questions?
Does the board have any questions on the changes?
Does the board have any questions?
Not me.
Any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. Questions from?
So just the other changes were there, the few that I had brought up. This is the LCAP for next year, right?
This is a yearly report that needs to be submitted.
So should Juanita's contact information still be the contact?
On board right now when it's being submitted,
Okay.
she's still here, so yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then it'll change in the following year when the next report goes.
Gotcha.
It'll have a new person on.
And then for the 2017 to 2018 teacher retainment at 100%,
hold on. What page are you looking at?
I believe it's on page 1.
If you can tell me which page, I can certainly,
It's right there. It's the LCAP highlights.
the highlights, LCAP highlights?
Thank you.
It's page
I'm like,
2.
oh, is it 2? Okay,
Page
I'm like, I
2.
think it's page 1, but.
I got lucky, I just flipped it over and there it was.
You're right, there was one teacher who's no longer here, so I'm counting one teacher.
There's 2, Mary and Adam, right?
Adam is not considered a teacher. So he's an instructor, so he's not considered a teacher. Hold on.
Okay.
Staff, oh yeah, you're right, there's 2, because I'm saying staff. Okay, so there's 2. So I'll do the percentage, will be 99.5. So whatever that percentage is, I'll do that.
And my pages are messed up.
So, got it. I have it. Thank you for the, for the comment.
What, on the budget summary where there's the 3 X's, is that going to have the actual amount, or is that?
That is the amount I mentioned at the very beginning.
Oh, okay, that was that amount, okay.
2 million
Okay, my page
something,
is
amount that I couldn't.
behind.
2,092,069.
Page 4.
Yeah. Okay, those are just the only things that you didn't talk about, or well, you did talk about one of those.
Yeah, part of my report.
All right, any other comments from anyone on the LCAP? All right. So I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the LCAP with the corrections made today.
I'll move that we,
Thank you, Mike. Can I get a
I will
second?
second that.
You will second it. All those in favor of approving the LCAP with today's corrections, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Passed. All right, is that it for the, and we have all the items, right?
Yep.
Okay. So now we're down to 9.1, announcements. Summer break. So we're going to be, the school will be closed from July 1st through July 31st, resuming August 1st. That's for the office staff and hopefully a new executive director of some sort, whether it's an interim position or it's somebody that's permanent. I don't know yet. And then classes begin on August 13th. Are there any other announcements? So I'd like to take, yes. Go ahead, Donna, you go first.
whoever is doing the float for Kitty Capers, how would people get a hold of you if I find someone, they say,
Yeah.
what do I tell them?
Yeah, we haven't got there yet. We're going to work on a flyer and get the trailer and come up with an idea. So then we know where we're going. I am one of those organized people that likes to have a plan of action before I take my steps. So right now, their ideas, I'm guessing Parent Square would probably be the best bet because that's just going to be easiest for everybody, so.
Okay. Thank you.
There are no other announcements, ending at 9:02. Thank you very much for being here, everyone.